The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning or good afternoon to everyone joining us today. Welcome to Requisition Items Beginner Level presented by Mike Chadwick. Thank you, Mike, for doing another webinar for me this year. These webinars are brought to you with the Education Committee and the Board of Directors. The Education Committee was formed in 2008, and part of our mandate was to bring more user-led education initiatives to you. So thank you to all our committee members and to the Board of Directors for working with us. Our committee members, I'm sure you've heard, we have Renee, who's our chairperson. We have Nancy Brinchero, who pops on every once in a while from ActEvent and works with us to get information back and forth. Doug Dierzak, David Brown, Eric Pargman, Ron Thomason, Joe Murphy, Todd Tavner, and Michelle Peterson all join us on our regular calls. And thank you to the board. I know you've been working so hard on conference. We've seen the emails flying back and forth and the postings on the users group, and I don't know how you balance it all. So thank you to Dawn Preston, Catherine Galloway, and Shelby Scanlon for your hard work. And as a reminder, the conference is coming up March 8th through 10th at the Gaylord National Resort and Convention Center in Washington, D.C. I hear attendance is already great and the sessions are amazing, so make sure you take advantage and sign up. There's, I think they're working on a casino night on the cruise, so be sure to take advantage of it. And I hope you're enjoying our webinars. All of our webinar presenters are volunteers. They come to me with topics, we pull it together, we put together a PowerPoint, and we bring it to you every week. I'd love to have some new voices on, new topics that you want to see, so if there's any suggestions, please send the information to me at my email address on the screen, cheryl@murphyassistance.com. Now I'm going to turn it over to Mike for requisition items. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Cheryl. Again, my name is Mike Chadwick. I'm currently the Director of IT for Mercedes Medical down in Sarasota, Florida. We're a medical distributor, mainly serving doctors' offices, labs, hospitals. I've been a Profit 21 ActEvent user since 1995, going back to Excel 7, up through Acclaim and then to Commerce Center. I've been a Commerce Center Profit 21 user since 2004. And have been using version 12 since June of 2009. So today what we're going to be covering is the company maintenance and what you need to make sure that you have defined in there. Inventory adjustment reason codes that will be specific for your requisition items. Product groups for requisition items, and then some of the places in item maintenance that'll be a little bit different for anything requisition items. The board or the purchase order requirement generation and how you can use that with your requisition items. And then just some miscellaneous notes at the end. Overall, requisition items throughout the system work basically the exact same as your inventory items. Just they're are not considered an asset, so the GL accounts are a little bit different. Everything else pretty much works the exact same. The first thing that you want to make sure of if you're looking at using requisition items is in your company maintenance on your inventory tab. There is a place to specify what you want your requisition clearing account to be. The requisition clearing account works the exact same way as your inventory receipts clearing account does. Again, with requisition items, it works just like a regular inventory item in terms of the receipts and the flow through the GL. The only exception being the requisition item would typically hit your expense account versus inventory hitting your asset account. The requisition clearing account just serves to hold the value of requisition receipt until you actually get the invoice and convert that into a voucher. the next thing that you would want to make sure that you have set up is inventory adjustment codes that are specific for your requisition items, and more importantly, the GL accounts that you're going to be assigning to the particular items and that you're going to be using. In this particular example, this is one that we actually have set up here. And this reason ties out to one of our expense accounts that we use for whenever we buy a headset or a telephone or anything like that. We flow that through the requisition process, and so this is the GL account that gets affected. The reason that you would want a separate inventory adjustment code for your requisition items is, of course, for the GL number, so that you're not affecting your regular inventory account, cost of goods sold, or anything like that your other adjustment codes might be tied to. The next part of your setup would be with your product groups. If you're like us, our GL numbers are tied to our product groups for the asset, the revenue, and cost of sales accounts. So with doing requisition items, you'd want a special product group or multiple product groups if you have different categories that you need to actually book to different expense lines. This particular case, again, using our telephone maintenance, we set up a separate product group for that category. And the process that I've always used is for all three of the accounts specified, I put the expense account that's associated with that category of items. But the only account that would truly get used off of these would be your asset account, which for a requisition item instead of asset, it would actually be your expense account. Normally when you do put an expense account, when you're setting this up, then you may get a pop-up box alerting you to the fact that you are putting an expense account versus an asset account. If that's okay, just click through it. So with that expense account, that's going to cause the system to treat that expense account just like it would your regular inventory account on the GL. Okay. So with your requisition items, everything you use your regular item maintenance to load your items in. Everything's the same. Of course, the obvious difference is when you get to the lower half of the screen for your locations is the requisition checkbox. Some of the things to note: once you make an item into a requisition item, that item cannot be sellable. So if by chance you do have an item that you both use internally as well as sell to your customers, then you would have to make a decision on which way you want to do that. If you want to have it as a regular inventory item that's sellable, and then as you use it internally, just do item adjustments to book it to your expense line. So what I've done in the past is actually have that item loaded twice, one as an inventory item and then one as a requisition item. If that's so, your stockable checkbox, is personally up to you whether or not you want to track your requisition items as far as how much you have on hand. Some of the advantages of having, or some instances in which you may use a stockable requisition item, might be like your office supplies. If you have a central supply cabinet or something like that, then you can actually set up a min-max level on your requisition item. And so you can actually use that to actually order from. And what some may do is, once a week, they'll go through and basically just do a cycle count on the supply closet, and then post those counts. As we'll see in some of the other parts of the system, where you're going to actually be able to use that to hopefully make your ordering of your requisition items a little bit more efficient. So again, the stockable is totally up to you. In terms of your GL, it works the same way whether it's stockable or it's not stockable. The only disadvantage of having a requisition item as stockable is it does build up the quantity on hand. And you would need to either do an inventory adjustment, again using the reason code for that particular item class, or by doing an actual physical count for that item or that bin. Okay. On the location detail tab in item maintenance, of course, the big thing is your product group. This is very important. I've seen it happen in the past where the wrong product group actually gets loaded into the requisition item. And typically, it's a product group that deals with inventory. So it's very important to make sure that the right product group gets assigned onto the requisition item. Otherwise, it is going to impact the GL accounts that are associated with that product group, so your inventory GL account. So for all the accountants out there, they probably will not like that. So if you do make that requisition item a stockable item, then of course you can also track bins for that requisition item. If your setup is to where you have to require bins, if you have the wireless warehouse enabled for that location or whatever, then of course you have to have bins. In our case, I've set up a special bin for the IT office, and I actually broke it down a little bit different, just so when I'm doing a physical count, I have a bin per type of IT expense. The biggest thing that we have going through requisitions right now is all of our IT supplies. So I have a bin for the IT telephones as well as a bin for IT equipment. So therefore I can group it out, so when I'm doing my adjustments, I know which adjustment code I need to use to pull those items out of the system. And then on the GL accounts tab, of course, once you put your product group in, it's always a good idea to click over to the GL accounts tab to verify the GL accounts on the item are the ones you want to be on there. Again, like I said, that's just to prevent any chance of a requisition item hitting your regular inventory GL account and causing problems for the accountants out there. I thought I had it. On the replenishment tab, which since I don't have a screenshot in there, I'll just jump into Profit just so you can see the particular item that I'm working with is for our headsets, and I actually have a min-max set up for this item. It's actually set up like you can see. Everything's the exact same like in a regular item, just with the exception of it being marked as a requisition. On the replenishment tab, normally if you make the requisition item stockable, it'll automatically set the item to track by min-max. And then, of course, you can specify your min-max, and that's going to work exactly the same for a requisition item like it does for a regular inventory item. And the reason that you might want to set this is if you want to actually use purchase order requirements to generate your requisition POs, then you can use min-max to help control that and automate that process a little bit. Okay. So as far as setting up a requisition item, that's really all there is to it. Just making sure of those particular checks. Okay. The next thing that we can look at is how we can use purchase order requirements to automatically generate our requisition POs. This would be should be very good in like an office supply type situation. If you have all those items marked as stockable, you could set a min-max on those, and then once a week or whatever interval everything you want to set, you could go through and do a physical count on those items. Of course, you post what you have, and then when you come in here, the system's going to use those min-max levels and what you have on hand to generate your requirements just like it does for all of your inventory items. So this particular one here in the screenshot is actually one that I use to order our requisition items for. I have one particular supplier, so I have it limited. The only thing that you would need to make sure of is down for the requirement types that you check the requisition. Once you check that, it does gray out all of the other choices so that you cannot run requisition requirements with anything else. Okay, so you would have to do a separate path for your requisition items. Once you run that, it's going to pull up the requirements just like it does for inventory items, and everything else works the exact same. So the only difference is checking that requisition checkbox. Okay, some miscellaneous notes. Once we cover this, I'll actually jump into the system and go through a few different scenarios so that you can actually see the process working. Again, the inventory adjustments work just like a regular inventory adjustment for inventory items. It's just using or making sure to use the adjustment reason code that you have set up for your requisition items. Convert PO to voucher. Again, since these are going through the system, they work just like an inventory PO, so you would receive them in. Of course, it's going to hit the clearing account, and you have to convert that receipt into a voucher. Exact same process in AP. There is no difference. The only thing that you might have to account for would be sales tax, since that's really not something that you can load onto the requisition PO. And for that, once we actually jump over into profit, I'll show you how we handle it and what has worked best for us as far as sales tax and how to make sure to get that on the voucher. Your inventory receipts work the exact same. There is no difference. Having to receive a requisition PO is the exact same screen and option. There's not a separate place in the system to to receive it. So if you wanted your set up toward your warehouse, they receive your requisition POs, it would really be no difference for them in terms of how they do that. So what we'll jump over actually into profit. Again, item maintenance. Everything's the same with the exception of the checkbox to make it a requisition and your product groups and GL accounts. That's the biggest thing that you want to make sure of when you set your items up. Okay. Everything we covered, the adjustment reason codes, and setting up your product groups. Under purchasing, if you want to create just a manual requisition PO and not use the generation or anything, there is a separate screen for requisition purchase orders. The requisition purchase order, it looks and acts just like the regular PO screen. So if you have your purchasing department actually processing your requisition POs, there's really going to be no difference for them, so there's really no training or anything involved aside from using the requisition PO window. So just so you can see, I'm just going to go through and put a requisition in for one of our headsets. Okay, and from here you can print it, fax it, email it, everything just like you can a regular PO. Again, like I said, everything works the exact same. So we'll just go ahead and save this. I'm just going to make a note of our requisition number. 9464. Okay. And so now that we have that requisition in, when the product comes in, the warehouse or whoever you decide is going to receive the requisition POs, they actually go to purchase order receipts. There's not a separate window or anything like there is to actually generate to receive. All you do is come into the regular PO receipts, put your requisition PO number in, and all of this works the exact same as a regular receipt does. So there's no difference, no learning curve or training involved in this process. That's one of the biggest benefits is using requisition items. There's really not much training involved in the system for those involved because they're, for the most part, using the exact same screens and systems that are in place now. So all we're going to do is actually receive this in. This particular item I do have set to track serial numbers. That is one thing on your requisition items. Everything just like an inventory item, you can set that item to track serial numbers and or lots. In this case, for our headsets, I have chosen to track serial numbers so that I have a record of all the serial numbers that we buy. And so that so that way, if something ever happens with that headset, I know exactly when we got that in, so I can tell if that particular headset or piece of equipment would still be under warranty. At times it may be hard to tell, and you're trying to go back through your vendor invoices, everything. You're trying to find exactly when you bought that particular piece of equipment. So everything by doing this, I can actually look in the system, find that serial number, and that'll tell me exactly when I got it in. Then, of course, if I need to, I can track it back to the particular vendor invoice if I need to call that vendor to warranty the item or something like that. So, again, that's just a personal preference. And then, of course, since this item is stockable, everything, it does go to a particular bin. So we'll go ahead and receive that in. Again, now that we have received it, of course we need to get the invoice in from the vendor. And we come into AP, and we use the exact same convert PO to voucher. So there is no difference for AP. And this is actually one of the biggest benefits that I have found with using requisitions. It is the efficiency of AP. So AP would come in, convert PO to voucher, and reconcile that requisition receipt with the invoice just like they do a regular inventory PO. Like I said, this is one of the biggest benefits that you can get from using the requisition items. Is more than likely now AP they get an invoice for office supplies or something, and they may have to actually take it to somebody else to look over to make sure that you're actually getting billed for what you ordered, if the pricing's correct, where to code it, and all that. With using requisition items, of course, you're setting the GL accounts up on the item itself. So with AP, as long as it has that requisition number on that invoice from your vendor, they can come in here, convert it, and they really do not have to worry about what GL it goes to or if that purchase was authorized or anything, because they're going to have to reconcile it just like they do now for your inventory POs. So if there is something on that invoice that's not on the receipt, they'll be able to see that, and you can kind of go through the same process that you would now. So this particular, I'm going to actually just put this in. If there's freight, you can specify that here. If you do specify the freight in this total freight, this will actually book the freight to whatever you have set up as your freight expense account in your company settings. So the other way to do it, which is totally up to you and how you want to actually track it, but in this particular case, if we had sales tax, which you normally would for a requisition item, what we do is that we actually come up and go into the charges tab in the voucher. This particular vendor already has set up to populate the two accounts that we use. This particular case, it would be it's a headset, so it's telephone. So if we had $10 in sales tax, AP would simply come in here and fill this out and mark what it was. I do need to adjust that. And so in that way, the sales tax would get booked along with the expense of the item to that GL account. If you have a separate GL account that you track the sales tax that you pay for these type of items, then you can set that GL account up and book everything there. That's totally up to you and how your company operates and how you want to track those type of expenses and dollar amounts. This particular case is just how we have chosen to actually do this. Again, on here, everything you could actually put in. If you paid $10 freight, you could put in your freight account, put the freight here, and then you could actually put the same expense account for that you're booking to. And so in that way, you can actually book your freight to that expense line as well. So that would go into part of your expense for those items. Again, that's totally up to you and how your company operates. Everything else on here is the exact same. And so of course, I'm missing something in here. Go through and take that back out. That's what it was. Okay, and so now that voucher's in, and it can be paid through a regular check run, just like normal. Again, the biggest benefit that we have seen through using requisitions is the efficiency of AP, not having to track down accounts. Also, that we're getting billed what we ordered at the right price. Typically, everything off the supplies, stuff like that normally go through requisition items, they may not always get checked as good as your inventory POs. I know the last company that I worked for, before we implemented requisition items, that was not being done as good as it should have been. Once we implemented the requisition items, we started to see, and we were actually starting to identify the problems with invoices coming in from these from these vendors for office supplies and stuff like that. So with having to actually reconcile them, that's a very good check for all of that. Also, with a requisition process in place, we actually experienced a decrease in the amount that we were spending on office supplies, and so it gave us better control over that expense. Okay. We'll jump over the inventory adjustments. Again, the exact same inventory adjustment window. The only difference would be you would pick the reason code for whatever item or items that you're pulling out. All that works the exact same. And I'll actually jump over. And on the PO requirements, I actually use this for IT. The one that I have set up here, again, it's already set. But when I go through and generate the requirements, our headsets, thing clients, monitors, stuff like that, I have set up on everything with particular min-max levels. Well, I thought I had some to pull in here. But I have those set, and periodically I'll go through and do a count, everything on those items. Again, it pulled everything back. So that's why. But this would actually pull back just like it does for your inventory with recommended quantities. And then you would be able to actually drill in to see how many you have. And then from here, actually generate your requisition POs. In fact, email them, print them, just like you do for regular POs. So the other thing that with the physical count, that everything that works the exact same. So if you're doing cycle counts or whatever, everything you do have the option of doing just requisition items. And the way I do it, since I deal with items that affect 2 different GL accounts, as I said before, I actually have different bin locations set up for have IT computers and IT phones. All I would do is come in here and specify that particular bin number. Of course, bring it back, and then I can go through and enter my counts just like I do for a regular inventory count. So this is possibly something, if you are doing office supplies and you have them stockable, this would be everything an easy way for whoever's doing the ordering or the checking of your supply levels could come in here and put the counts in of how much you have. Then, of course, if you had the min-max, you turn around and your purchasing or whoever could use the PO requirements to go ahead and generate that based on your levels very quickly. So instead of having to actually go through and look at what items you need and how much you should have and all that, all you would do is just go through, count what you actually have on the shelf, go through and post those counts, and then generate the PO. So again, that's that's totally up to you. That's just some different ways you can do it to help automate and hopefully make things a little bit more efficient. But on here, if we take a headset out or two, again, that tracks serial numbers, so we do have to come in and actually tell it what serial numbers we're pulling out. The one thing I have not tried, which I cannot see why it would not work, if you have the WMS, I would be pretty confident that you could actually use the wireless guns to actually go through and do a count. Like I said, I've not actually tried that, but I can't see why that would not work, so that might possibly make it even more efficient to go through and do an offer supply count or something like that. So we'll just go ahead and post that. And now that I've done that, we should be able to look at our requirements again, and we should need a headset. And we do. Again, here I have my min-max set at 0, everything with max is 2. So this is now recommending that I order 2 of them. So that's a very easy way. I think of doing this versus having to actually try to guess how much do I need, or doing any type of math to everything if you have particular levels that you want to maintain. And of course, everything you would just check purchase, save it. Again, you can fax it, email it, print it. However you normally do your ordering for these type of items. Okay, so again, like I said, most everything about requisition items works exactly the way you're doing stuff now for inventory items, with a few exceptions. So there's really not much training involved, and of course, how much you do, how little you do is entirely up to you. If you want to give it a try, pick one, everything a small supplier or something like that, and try it out. Okay. The other way that you could potentially do it, which I've never actually used, but if you wanted to, say, track how much each department is actually using in a particular type of supply, but you do a central purchase, like with a supply cabinet. What you could do, have the item loaded as going to maybe a general expense account for those type of supplies, and then you could actually set up different inventory adjustment reason codes for each individual department's expense lines. And then as they pull stuff out of that cabinet or use it, then you could actually do inventory adjustments and actually move that dollar value from that general expense account over to the department's expense account. So that would be, I mean, you could do that instead of actually having possibly create 2 different items that two separate departments use. Because, of course, that item's only going to one. And so if you do break it down by department, then you would need to do something like that or set the item up multiple times with the different product groups. So, again, stuff like that, it's totally up to you and how your internal processes work. Luckily, we've never had to actually bar with it. Let's see, just trying to make sure that we have covered different possibilities. Again, anytime that I've implemented the requisition items, there has always been benefits, everything from doing that. So at this time, we can open it up for questions.
Everyone a chance to type in their questions and give you a little bit of a break, Mike. I wanted to let everyone know that we've got some great webinars coming up, and to please watch the forum, particularly the calendar page. That's where you'll find the most up-to-date listing of the webinars coming up. I post a link to register there, and as well the information. We have some great vendors coming up. We have Luminosity Software coming up in March, and we have Behringer this month, and that's in 2 weeks. So be sure to take advantage of those and check the forum for the description. And Mike, we were talking just before the webinar that you're actually doing a couple sessions at conference as well. So I think you said you signed up for 3?
Yes.
Just to keep them busy. So start putting your questions in, and we'll start getting to them. I'm sure there's going to be a bunch, and we've got time to do them. So. Mike, we have, yeah, see, now they're all coming in. Hold on. The first question we have for you, this is the thing with all of your webinars, we get tons of questions. Do you have a workaround for going out on an RFQ for a requisition item?
That's actually a good question, and unfortunately one that I cannot answer because we've never actually done RFQs. So that's something I do not have any experience with on that side of it.
Okay. Our next question. We have 32 different locations. Do you think adjusting office supplies out would be the easiest way for us to do this, or is there an easier way?
If we're talking about anything regular, just manual adjustments, possibly not. For having that many, also depending on how many items everything you're talking about, I would probably actually lean towards doing a physical count. Unless it's a situation where you want to adjust it right then as it gets used, then you would do a regular inventory adjustment. Because the requisition, like I said, works just like regular inventory. So if you do have, say, that item stock full in all 32 locations or something like that, if it's separate physical locations outside of like 32 cabinets or something like that in different locations, then you could probably manage each one individually. I think just like you would your regular inventory. For some people, actually having, I think you might not want any of your requisition items to stockable just because of the extra admin work to relieve that quantity on hand from them. So there are some items that I do not mark stockable just because it's not worth having to actually maintain that quantity. And again, just because you have it stockable does not mean you have to actually relieve that quantity. And then you can just let it build up. That's not going to affect anything. It's not going to increase your expense line or anything like that.
Our next question, how would you recommend catalogs be handled? We track them on customer orders, but currently do not do anything about buying.
On catalogs, what I would probably do is actually you could do a requisition item for the catalogs, but instead of making that a stock order everything requisition item, is just have it be a non-stock everything requisition item, and then you can either when those come in, then you can item adjust them in to a regular inventory item to get them onto the customer order to actually send them out. Again, that it would be up to you whether or not you want to actually put a cost on the inventory item or track it through the expense side of it. The other way that you can actually do catalogs since would be to actually put them on a PO, a regular inventory PO to your vendor, and track them that way. So since that's actually something that you're sending out on a customer order, and obviously a true requisition item is not something that you're going to be sending out to a customer as part of a customer's order, I could see you doing that either way. Either a requisition item and just expensing all that out, and then do an inventory adjustment onto your inventory item with a zero cost so that you can put it on the order, or just not doing the requisition side and just doing a regular inventory PO to your vendor and having the cost of that catalog flow through on the order. So that would be up to you and however you want to handle the accounting side of that, with expensing it out through requisitions or expensing it out through cost of sales as you put it on the order.
Well, that's all the questions we currently have for you today, Mike. I'm sure there's others that are going to come up after everyone's had a chance to sit back and think about what you presented. There's a lot of information there. Oh, we see, and now there's a really long one. I think she was typing in the whole time there. Hold on. But just before we get to this last question then, if there's any questions that obviously we can't answer during the webinar, please put them up on the forum, because there's tons of people out there that may have had other solutions or have the same problem as you and have found a way to work it out. So put it up on the forum. If you need help registering on the forum, send me a quick email. I will find a way to get you on there and get you active on it, because it's a great resource on top of the webinar. So our last question for you today, Mike, and bear with me, it's a long one. We use the production order module to build test fixtures as manufacturing supplies to be used on the shop floor. Currently, we build using all inventory components. We set up the top level number as an inventory item with a requisition GL. Upon completion, we turn into a requisition item in item maintenance. Would setting up the top level build item as a requisition item from the beginning be a problem? And then she says, though we are using all inventory items to build it.
Whew. That's one I'm not sure that I can answer here. If whoever sent that question in, if you could send that to me directly or post that on the forums, just so I can go through and actually look at it. I'm not sure if you can actually do a requisition item and set that up as anything like an assembly item. I've never actually tried that or know what possible problems, everything you could encounter from that. So if you want to either just send me that question directly or post it on the forums, I'll definitely look into that for you.
And Mike, if you could just pop your contact information, I think it's the next slide, just up on the screen.
There you go.
Yep. And there's Mike's email address right there. If you don't have a chance to write it down, then just email me or post it to the forum. One of us will find it and get it to you. Mike, I want to thank you so much for doing another webinar for me today, and I'll probably approach you again after conference. I know you won't let me before. And thank you again to everyone who joined us today. I hope you have a great Tuesday afternoon or what's left of your morning, depending on where you are. And take care. I hope to see you all again soon. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.